So there is definitely something in your life that is monotonous, that you do very consistently, and if you automated it, your life would be a lot better, right? We all have something, and it's not until you start thinking about things in the right way that you spot them. So I'm currently a software engineer, so it's easy for me to say, oh, you're doing X thing, that's something that would be appropriate, versus, that you don't want to automate that because it's not possible. You know, the difference between walking the dog versus automatically converting file formats, right? So I was in construction before. I used to be in construction finance. That was what I did my degree in and how I started my career. And actually, automating this job is what led me to being a software engineer. Funnily enough, this story intertwines. Now, when I was in construction, I had a lot of different responsibilities. And one of those responsibilities was we would get, as a company, lots and lots of receipts, which are called invoices. And those invoices, God, would probably take 2 of my 5 days a week. So I was spending about 20% of my time. Essentially, you would get an invoice through, it would have a company name, the cost, the different items that you've bought, the tax, and we would have to take that and move it into a Excel file, essentially, that was formatted in the way that the company wanted it to be. So it was data entry, right? And I spent a lot of time not thinking about the fact that this is something that has been automated for a long time. And you'll find this. If you're not in the tech sector, this will be easier. And if you are in the tech sector, at the end of this video, I'll go into some of the automations that I found that have improved my job as a software engineer. But before we get into that, right, so invoices to Excel. So I think initially what I did was I just Googled automation of invoice processing, right? And you'll get a bunch of really good solutions. It's not like this is anything new. We're not breaking any boundaries here. People have been automating this for years, right? But the problem is with a lot of these services is that they're going to cost you a fortune, and as an individual, you probably don't want to be spending half of your salary on automating your job, because after tax you probably haven't made a profit. But what you can do is you can build the skill of automating the different roles that you have that can be automated, and do it at, I mean, 100th the cost. I think when I did the math on the solution that I came up with here, which was Google Cloud, have a Vision API that's purpose built for invoice processing. So it was literally a point of just copy pasting boilerplate code, which at the time GPT didn't exist. You could ask ChatGPT right now, how do I set up invoice processing with Google Cloud, and use a language like Python. That's what I did. Now I'm full stack C# and XAML, but this was well before I knew anything about coding. And fortunately, a lot of these are quite nicely human readable. Anything that you couldn't understand, you just copy paste into GPT and pick it up. Or if you have a different language, like Google Cloud provides code snippets in your language. And I remember going through following these, and I would string them together until you would get these JSON files back. That's not a JSON, but you'd get your OCR response. And then it was as simple as, how do I output this into Excel rows and columns? And I just was company name. Column 1 was the items. Column 2 was the cost. And it would just output it. And that wasn't a complex piece. I mean, it might have taken me a month at the time because I didn't have any history in this. But what the output was that I just saved 20% of my time. But you can't just think of it in terms of, okay, that's 20% of my time that's just free time. No, you're still at work. But the point is that the things that I spent the other 80% of my time doing, now it's 40%, isn't it? Yeah. That was horrible maths. I've saved more time than I realized. And it was about 2 days a week that I was doing this. I was just sat there at my computer reading invoices and not having a happy time. But once I finished this thing, I would copy paste my invoices for the week into a folder, run my Python script, and it had this awful GUI that was written in Python that was, again, just boilerplate that I'd copy pasted from some website. But at the end of the day, it output an Excel file that I'd copy paste into the main one, and my work was done. In 5 minutes, I'd done 2 days. But like I said, you're not just freeing up that time, you're now using it for what you would otherwise be spending your time doing. So as far as work were concerned, I had my responsibilities that otherwise took up the other 60% of my time, which every other construction finance person was spending their time equally split like this, except I could use almost all of my time doing this thing. So they couldn't compete with me if they tried. If I was handed a piece of work that I'd have to juggle with my invoices, didn't matter because I wasn't having to do my invoices anymore, and I could get it done in half the time they expected it to be done. And that's where you have the fork in the road. So you've done your automation and you've got a choice, because the next question is, how does this lead to a promotion? Okay, so I guess here you can go a traditional or an alternative route. So I actually tried both, failed in one and then succeeded in the other, and I didn't realize the other was an opportunity until I failed. So what I did was I went to, not even my boss, I went to the director of the company and I said, can I have just 10 minutes of your time? I think that I can reduce, I had a much better elevator pitch at the time. I remember rehearsing it before I went in because I was super nervous. I was only 18, 19, going into this guy's office and basically saying that I wanted to pitch to him an idea that I thought would save him a lot of time and money and free up my colleagues' time so that they could spend their time doing the more important things other than data entry. So I remember him coming into, we had a boardroom, and I stood in front of it and I pointed at the Google Clouds. I showed him basically the layman's, okay, this is what it does. It takes in invoices, it outputs data. And I showed him my program and I said, look, it does my job. It's been doing my job for the past month. I had a rollover time where I was running the program and also doing the work myself to validate that it was in fact working. And I said, look, it's freed up 40% of my time. It could free up 40% of the other 8 guys that you have doing this. And he said, this is incredible. Well done. We'll use it. And then after that, I basically never heard from him again. He just wasn't interested. It didn't go anywhere. I didn't mind, and I could have stayed here, and that would have been fine. Or it could have quite easily gone the other way, where he could have chased it up, and I probably would have stayed with that company, and that would have been the career progression path for your non-tech roles, right? But instead, what I did is I went to a different company, and I said, hi, I know how to solve problems that actually save you money. And that is something that is like gold dust. So you'll probably hear about how software companies have started employing non-software people for roles, and it's because they're looking for divergent thinkers. They're not looking for the same people, not to generalize, but essentially that's what they're doing, right? They're generalizing people who take computer science degrees and saying, do we want the same thinkers over and over again, or should we take engineers and people from finance and train them to be software engineers so that we have alternate viewpoints on things? And if you can be someone that is from a different background and also evidence that you're able to use technology to solve problems, then all they have to do is train the language. The thing that's hard to train is being the kind of person who's going to be solving problems, because most people, like I said at the beginning, would love to just spend their entire career just doing data entry and never solving it, never automating it. The gap here, and what allows you to piece the puzzle together is automation. That's how you go from your initial, okay, I'm in the job that isn't quite as fulfilling as I'd like it to be. How do I become a software engineer? You know, you might have that regret of, oh, I didn't go and do computer science as a degree. I had that. I thought, wow, like, actually I was pretty good at IT. Why didn't I just pick a degree in computer science? I'm very glad that I didn't. I'm glad that I went for a degree that got me a job that was highly employable. I didn't. I'm glad that I went for a job that was different and highly employable and actually gave me the opportunity to solve problems. Luckily for me, this is actually what worked. This is what got me this was what broke me into the tech industry. Just because I got here doesn't mean that these opportunities cease to exist. So yes, you've made it, say, to software. Say you take this path and you become a software engineer, and you're fortunate enough to find a company that will train you, which I'm sure you will, because you watch plenty of YouTube videos that say, okay, how to set yourself apart for being a software engineer, and the repeated thing is have a portfolio, have projects that matter. You know what projects matter? Ones that actually save companies money. That's what the guy hiring you wants to hear, is that you're going to come in with ideas that will make a meaningful difference to his key value drivers, right? So just because we're here doesn't mean the story has to end, right? Once you're at the next step and either you've remained within the company you were in and you've automated something major that was part of your job, or you've taken a lateral move into a different career because of your newfound work in technology, right? Don't stop automating. I can't emphasize this enough, that even coming into tech where people have an aptitude for solving problems, there is always space for somebody with drive who wants to make a difference. And if you can be that person, that is the best career advice I can give, because it served me very well. Just keep looking for problems and solving it. And what I would recommend is that once you get past that initial project that you do, and maybe the first one doesn't work out, you know, and we don't end up getting to these steps, and we end up back at the drawing board, just start creating a list of things that you don't like doing. Even with like simple things, say that you're within Excel and you don't feel confident enough yet to go into something that was entirely enclosed, like outside. You could use Visual Basic to start creating forms for your Excel files. So you start automating those repetitive tasks. Say that you're in accountancy and you constantly need to fill in books in a very specific way. Maybe 10% of it is you entering things, but 90% of it is just you copy-pasting the same templates over and over again. You can automate that. And if you're in software, file switches, you know, you probably have some kind of developer tooling for the application that you use at work that requires you to switch out files occasionally. Okay, write a Python script and have it just a double click, or if there's options, just have it console output your options and then numbers next to them, and you hit 2 for option 2 and you hit enter and it's done for you. And then once you have this Kanban board of things that you can automate, pick the highest value one that will save you the most amount of time. And if you do this over enough time, you're guaranteed to end up in one of these two scenarios where you can say, even if it's your pay review at the end of the year, you can say, look, I've done my normal job, probably better than most people because you've automated all the bits that can be automated. And also, here's all the problems I've solved for you. Here are the options that I can give to my colleagues. And this will set you apart. But the major thing that could hold you back here is how well you can execute on either presenting your idea to the relevant stakeholder or presenting yourself in an interview. So if you watch my next video, I'll show you step by step how I went from generic software engineer to the kind of guy that could hold a conversation in an interview and presented myself in a way that got me hired.